Certainly. Here's a neutral and historically grounded short story capturing Adolf Hitler's early life and personal struggles, before his rise to power, intended for educational purposes and not to glorify or sympathize with his actions or ideology. The Struggle of the Unknown Artist. Vienna, 1907. A cold wind swept through the cobbled streets as a 17-year-old young man stood before the grand gates of the Academy of Fine Arts. In his hands was a leather folder, worn at the edges, filled with sketches of buildings, cityscapes, and architectural forms, his greatest hope. Adolf Hitler, an ambitious youth from the Austrian town of Linz, had come to Vienna with dreams larger than himself. Orphaned young, his strict father dead and his beloved mother, Clara, recently buried, he was utterly alone, carrying with him only ambition and the desperate need to belong somewhere. When he was rejected from the academy for the second time, the blow was crushing. Lacks talent for painting, perhaps better suited for architecture, the committee had remarked. But Adolf lacked the required schooling. No diploma, no prospects. With no family to return to and no job, he wandered the streets of Vienna, sometimes selling postcards with his watercolors, often sleeping in shelters or public dormitories. Cold, hungry, and increasingly bitter, his world darkened. In the homeless shelters and cafes, he met others like him, destitute, angry, confused. He read obsessively, operas, politics, history. Slowly, his inner world shifted. The pain of rejection began to mold into something else, a desire to find blame, to assign meaning to his suffering. His beliefs hardened. He found in extreme nationalism and anti-Semitic pamphlets an explanation, however twisted, for his failures. Vienna, once the dream city of his youth, had become a crucible. In those years, Hitler transformed from a struggling artist to a man seething with resentment. One day, he thought, staring at the Parliament building, they will know my name, not as a painter but as something greater. Historical note. This story is based on factual elements of Adolf Hitler's early life. He struggled significantly in Vienna, faced poverty, artistic failure, and isolation. These personal hardships contributed to the development of his radical ideology, which eventually led to his rise as the leader of Nazi Germany, resulting in catastrophic consequences, including World War II and the Holocaust. If you'd like a continuation focused on how these early struggles shaped history, or if you're looking for a different format, e.g., screenplay, novel excerpt, documentary voiceover, I'd be happy to help. Certainly. Here's the next part of the story, continuing from Hitler's early years in Vienna and moving into his transition from a lost youth to a soldier, still grounded in historical fact but written as a narrative. The Soldier's Awakening. Munich, 1913. After years of scraping by in Vienna, Adolf Hitler boarded a train and crossed into Germany. He had left behind the hunger and failure of the Austrian capital, seeking a new beginning in Munich. He brought with him his sketchbooks, some second-hand clothes, and the bitterness of a man who believed the world had wronged him. He barely spoke to anyone. He lived in cheap rooms, painted a little, read obsessively. His world was ideas. German nationalism, race theories, war heroes, operas by Wagner. He hated democracy, detested Marxism, and saw parliamentary politics as weak and corrupt. But then came August 1914. The world shifted. Germany declared war. Crowds filled the streets of Munich, cheering, waving flags. Hitler, who had felt rootless all his life, finally saw his chance to belong to something greater than himself. I fell to my knees and thanked heaven, he would later write. He enlisted in the Bavarian army and was sent to the front in Belgium and France. World War I was brutal. Mud, lice, trench rot, artillery fire, the constant stench of death. Yet Hitler thrived in the discipline and simplicity of war. He wasn't a great soldier, never promoted beyond corporal, but he was brave, earning the Iron Cross, first and second class. He acted as a message runner, sprinting between trenches under fire. And despite the horror, it gave him something he had never known: purpose, identity, and brotherhood. But in October 1918, he was blinded in a British gas attack near Ypres and sent to a military hospital. While he lay there recovering, coughing and unable to see, the war ended. Germany had surrendered. When Hitler heard the news, he wept, not for the country, but for what he believed was a betrayal. He blamed the politicians, the so-called November criminals, and the Jews, convinced that Germany had been stabbed in the back by internal enemies, not defeated on the battlefield. Lying in that hospital bed, recovering in darkness, something hardened in him. The artist was gone. The dreamer, dead. What rose in his place was the ideologue. Historical context. After World War I, Hitler joined a small nationalist party in Munich, the German Workers' Party, which he would later transform into the National Socialist German Workers' Party Nazi Party. The humiliation of defeat, combined with economic collapse and deep divisions in German society, created fertile ground for extremism. If you'd like, I can continue this into the next chapter. His entry into politics, the beer hall putsch, or how he manipulated propaganda and fear to rise to power. Would you like that? Certainly. Here's the final part of the story, capturing Hitler's rise to power and how his personal struggles and ideology ultimately shaped world history, presented as a sober, historically grounded narrative. The rise to ruin. Munich, 1919. Germany was a broken nation, its empire gone, its economy in shambles, its people angry and humiliated. Into this chaos stepped Adolf Hitler, now in his 30s, jobless, ruthless, and consumed by ideology. Assigned by the army to spy on fringe political groups, he attended a meeting of the German Workers' Party. What he heard there, anti-Marxist, anti-Semitic, ultra-nationalist rhetoric, mirrored his own views. But when he spoke up, something surprising happened. Greater than the room listened. Then they applauded. Hitler joined the party, quickly rising to become its most powerful voice. He renamed it the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party, and crafted its symbol, the swastika. He spoke with fiery conviction, blaming Jews, communists, and democratic leaders for Germany's downfall. His speeches stirred emotions: shame, pride, rage. Crowds grew. So did his ambition. In 1923, he tried to seize power in a failed coup, the beer hall putsch. He was arrested and imprisoned in Landsberg prison, where he wrote Mein Kampf, My Struggle, outlining his vision: racial purity, dictatorship, vengeance against those who betrayed Germany. Most ignored him, but he waited. The global Great Depression in 1929 changed everything. Germany was in crisis again. The Nazis promised strength, unity, and revival. Hitler promised to make Germany proud again, and many listened. By 1933, he was appointed chancellor. Democracy died quickly. Civil liberties were crushed. Political opponents disappeared. A single-party dictatorship rose. The Reichstag fire was used to justify terror. The Enabling Act gave Hitler total power. Then came the laws stripping Jews of rights, the rearmament of Germany, the invasion of Poland in 1939, and with it, the start of World War II. What began as a young man's personal struggle, a failed artist's bitterness, unleashed a global catastrophe. By the time Hitler shot himself in a Berlin bunker in 1945, over 60 million people were dead. Europe was in ruins.